I feel people see this way, but I want to know if you agree. Do you think people get frustrated when they can't put you in a box, or they'll say things like, "Oh, Ryan's like a fence sitter, or he's a liberal, or he's a secret whatever." I get the sense that people like you don't come out and say your position on things. You're just trying to be funny and make sketches, but I feel like people will see that and they really want to figure out what team you're on so they can know what box to put you in.
Yeah, people want to figure out like on like on you if people think that you align with them, they get mad that you won't do it if you then the other way. Yeah, of course. But that's like how people's brains work, right? So it really is I get the like brain mechanism where people's brains can't have just a bunch of people that they can't place, right? So
Mm.
it's like it's very it's very hard for them, but like so people are just going to misplace you forever. But the people that actually pay attention to you, like how many times have you been like a fan of someone and someone will be like, oh, he just thinks this, and you're like, what are you fucking like, you know, like anyone that's like popular, I think is going to be like misrepresented. And ideally, the more clear you are to the people that actually follow you, the more that it just discredits them. Like in some ways, if your people all like know what you think and people are trash talking you and they're saying things that aren't true, it's like almost better because they're like, if someone was arguing, if someone argued that like my arms, I need to work out harder, you know what I mean? Like you'd be like, your people might be like, oh, that might be making a good point. If someone argued that I'm like too fat, like you know what I mean, Ryan's too fat, you just be like, what are you
What?
even talking? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if it just sometimes it just makes people's arguments like so out of left field that you're like, that's not even close to what this guy thinks. So I think that happens to anyone that has like any sort of like a nuanced opinion.
And I think sometimes people will see just like a slice of your personality and they'll think that that represents the whole of you. Like I think I saw someone was talking about like Elsa Jean, this like porn star who I had on my show, and they're like, "Well, Elsa did Chrissie Mayer's show, and she's a conservative podcaster, so she must be da 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 da." I'm like, okay, I just still think it's funny when people call me a conservative, but I probably am more that than like a foaming at the mouth liberal. But then you'll see people that'll be like, "Oh, she has sex workers on her show. Like she's definitely not a conservative. She's trash. She's liberal or whatever." And it's like, it's okay to kind of be all those things. Again, like I'm not trying to be like a pundit and represent like I'm just trying to be funny and I don't know if anything, maybe more libertarian. But again,
But I
like
think that even what you're saying, like people, that's people that like don't understand how culture is moving. Like that is a huge pocket of like if you look at hip hop and like black red pill guys, like whatever you want, like that whole
like
community.
Bryson Gray or
I don't know him specifically if he would fit into like what I'm about to say, but I was gonna say like guys that kind of thought Trump was cool, but also were into like getting pussy and like strippers and all that shit, right? Do you know what I mean? Like that's like a huge like type of thing that exists. Like it's kind of like a masculine more culture. It's like
I mean being a patriot,
yeah, I don't know if that's
just
but
loving Trump and
I think
puss.
it. I think they. I'd be more. It's way more of like a masculine thing. They're just like, this like liberal shit's like for girls. You know what I mean? I think that. But that there's all these like pockets that people like want to ignore exist, so they just try to put it into categories. But really, it all kind of boils down to more like male, woman, decentralized, centralized. Like those are probably the two feminine, masculine, centralized, decentralized are probably the two spectrums that to me actually make sense. The liberal conservative one, like they've engulfed too many different things that are not even alike.
You strike me as a little bit maybe more of like a libertarian if you had to go somewhere.
Maybe I don't know. I guess I think it depends on this. You know what I always think? It probably depends on what scenario I'm in. If I was in a scenario where it was like complete anarchy, I might be like, all right, there needs to be some order here. It probably makes more sense for us to like pool some money together to get the roads. But like, or whatever it is. But if you're in a scenario, like I see a lot of those things as like medicine more than I see them as like overarching philosophy sometimes. But if you're in a scenario that like everything's getting so centralized, you're like, yeah, we need to decentralize this. But I also see, I don't know, like what answer is there other than like it? Any society like just naturally kind of becomes more socialist. That's just like what happens. So the only you're not like the answer to that. If you want to do anything like like new and important, it has to sort of be outside the box. So it has to be sort of like outside that system. It's just like I don't see like much way around it. Like if you want to do anything like really like interesting, like whether that be a new company or like new technology or like a comedy, that it has to operate outside the system. So like naturally you have to be kind of like finding like a decentralization, which I guess like is libertarian. Yeah.
Give me an example of this, of what you're talking about.
Okay, like right now they had the like industry of comedy, right? And that became like increasingly more centralized, where it's like, hey, like at some point it was more all over the place, and then it became like, here are the four studios, here's the system. If you want to be a comedian, there's this Comedy Central, then you could do the late night.
Mm.
Like it became very systemized, is what it is, right? So anyone, and then
You'd be
as
on
it
like a track. You'd be like,
well,
that's the
of
mainstream
course.
track.
And as
Yeah.
things become more systemized, they also become more like regimented, and people sort of start to do the same thing because they go, this is the thing that works. The rules become more clear. Like you can't say this here. Like if you want to be part of this system, like this is what works. You work clean. Like let's say you need to have these ball. Like it all just becomes more like systemized, and then people can try to be outliers, but why would you? Like it doesn't make any
'Cause
sense.
that's the path to success. And that's why,
Yeah,
like,
like why would you
yeah.
fight that forever? It's almost those fights
Mm.
that you like. Even in like anyone who works like at a TV show, like you can be the guy that or in a relationship, like you pick your battles. Like you don't you like you if you have a different philosophy, eventually you just kind of like settle in a little bit and pick your battle. So I think that the same thing happens. So if you want to do anything different, like the only thing you can do is sort of push for like a decentralization. So I think that like there's always going to be like a push for like creating new systems from people that want to do like innovative things, and then there will always be like a push for centralization for people who like want sort of like a more comfortable society, which is most people. So that fight will probably just always take place forever. Like that
Did
San
you
Francisco became like super centralized. Now all of the like certain people that were in tech all moved to like Austin, and they're kind of starting again, the like Peter Thiels of the world. Like so it's like that fight just
in
goes on
Nashville?
everywhere in the world for all of history. So I don't know if anyone would be like, yeah, it'll just be like this perfect, it'll be this or it'll be that. Like when people say libertarian, it's like if you had the perfect libertarian society, it would just slowly drift back to like it's like they're always like it's just like these constant like battles that always exist, I think.
Yeah, libertarianism is like by definition outside of the norm. If they were ever welcomed in truly as like a third party, how would that change things?
Well,
Like,
they have
do you
sort
ever
of like a different, like they have a very, there's like two types of probably people that there's people that are like, oh, we'll be a party and sort of change culture, and then we'll kind of make a difference in politics probably. And then there's the people that are like, hey, we're gonna like create a new like country on the web, and I think those people are probably actually the ones that actually make differences more than people that enter politics as that like change like in a lot of ways, like I actually have this guy Balaji Srinivasan on my podcast. He's like probably I think it's like one of the smartest guys, and
what's
it's
his
like
name?
I forget
Bellagio?
Balaji, but I can
Oh.
never pronounce his last name. Hold on, let me this guy's like the man. He's coming on my podcast, so probably people can see it very soon, but it is Srinivasan, but I'm not good at pronouncing Indian names. But it's like, I feel like he's a good guy that points out the idea that like remote work did more to change society than any laws or whatever. You know what I mean? Or the fact that you can like hire someone in working in India, like that's going to do so much more for libertarianism than, you know what I mean, than anything else. Like the like kind of technology and like decentralization and fucking cowboys in the new Silicon Valley. I feel like by actually action will do the same reason why I think comedians do way more to change people's opinions than probably people at Daily Wire ever will. Like they're because that's
Mm.
not what they're there for. They're there for to sort of be like a mouthpiece for like one side of like a cultural norm, and that's like doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't need to matter, but I don't think it like changes anything.
Yeah.
Not that some people don't want change, right? But like, I just think when you're talking about the like libertarians versus the socialism, it's like the ones who really change like the way that the world will work probably don't even like bother themselves with thinking about whether it's good or bad. They just kind of like do things that change the world.
Do you think it's important for a comedian like yourself to not really take one side politically, one way or the other? Maybe it could just be you personally, like, are
I just
not
don't think I
bent
have.
that way.
I just don't think I like have one like in that sense. I mean, you have your own natural inclinations, but like society always changes. So if you have even if you have like if you're in touch with like who your personality and your sentiment, I think for most people like well then as soon as everything changes and like different things become to different terms, like if you say I'm a this and then they go, oh, we think this now, like if you look at even in the last 4 years, like the fights that all these sides have changed drastically. Like what the big pushes are and what like the consensus that we're all fighting against, like that changes so quickly. So I mean, if you want to be like lockstep with that, then you're probably not that in touch with what you actually think. You're just kind of like, yeah, I'm just like I'm gonna get on board with what like the people around me think.
Right. So it's just like know what issues you care about, but that's true. When you kind of join up with a side, you're going to be a little bit subconsciously like, oh well, I'm
Also,
with this
people can,
crew
yeah.
now.
Also, like people naturally get carried away, right? So it's like almost human nature to get carried away. You know what I mean? So, in a lot of ways,
Like during the riots, yeah, the summer of love.
whatever, like group, whatever, the amount of times that I've had like a very strong opinion, and even it doesn't have to be political. Like, imagine that you have an opinion that I think that this band is the best band, and then the world starts to agree. Then they're on every channel, and then they're everywhere, and then everywhere you go, everyone's talking about how great they are. And at some point, the level of everyone saying they're great is higher than how great they actually are. And then you become the person being like,
Overhyped.
I mean, they're not that great. Now all of a sudden your take becomes, so you're always in some ways arguing against consensus. So it's like, and then what side of you take against the consensus becomes like that be your side of the argument. But really, so I think in comedy a lot of times I find myself arguing against like what the popular opinion is more than I find myself arguing for a specific like thing.
That is a really good description of what you do because I'm going to share this
You're looking at the
video.
discrepancy, right? If everyone says this
Yeah.
is amazing and you're like it's medium, then you're arguing that it's bad. If everyone says it's medium and I think and it's if anyone says it's terrible and I think it's medium, then I'm arguing it's good. So you're kind of like,
You're like, what is the consensus and how do I go against, or how do I at least poke holes in
if
the
I disagree
consensus?
with it, if I agree with it, I usually just don't talk about it because if I there's been a few times where, lots of times probably where everyone thinks something and I actually do agree with it, and you're like, well, there's probably no point in me making a video that I agree with like what everyone's already saying everywhere.
Yeah. What? The trans movement is toxic? No way. I love this is a section of this video that you put out. Gosh, like last week, advertising in 10 years, and it's all about like BlackRock taking over all the like I guess major properties, and you're like, it was Procter and Gamble, but now it's just Gamble because Procter was spreading misinformation during the whatever the pandemic. Hold on, I'm just gonna
Pandemic
play.
12.
This part is so
12
funny.
misinformation. But that's all behind us because Mr. Clean is now MX Clean. And we're happy to announce that he's in a wheelchair and neurodivergent. Speaks Stephen Hawking style, if you remember that guy. Typewriter, time to clean. Still has gay orgies despite the disabilities. If you look at the back of the box, there's a list of MX Clean's favorite wheelchair accessible bathhouses. But that's not all, folks. MX Clean has, and you guessed it,
Oh no.
dyslexia. And the words on the box will be scrambled. If he can't read them, no one can. Count Chocula, pronouns vamp self, gay necrophiliac. And there's nothing wrong with that. Couple bodies on the box. He's eyeing them. Little wink to the kids. Let them know stuff's about to go down. Jolly Green Giant is now the Jolly Queer Regular. His best part, the queer regular is blind and retarded. but also the CEO of a BlackRock hedge fund, because there's nothing the queer regular can't accomplish. And lastly, M&Ms are just being replaced with a bunch of black guys. That's right, we've managed to purchase the likeness of all members of 90s R&B group Bone Thugs and Harmony. And
you're just talking about like one was like Fruit Loops and like Toucan Sam. You're like, he can't smell, so we're cutting off the noses of everybody around him. And you talk so fast, I think it's hard for the algorithm to flag you.
Yeah, I do get flagged sometimes, but sometimes I beep stuff out. Yeah, there's like tricks to do, but yeah, I feel like that always makes me laugh. Like the idea that we're happy to announce he's retarded. Like I love the idea of like being excited to announce that like our new mascot has like disabilities. It's like such a funny thing.
Yeah, you're celebrating ineptitude.
Well, I remember I've never been able to like properly make this a joke, but I can't remember. It was kind of, there was like an article and it was like, I just want to say that, people were saying that this guy in a wheelchair, like there's something worse about being in a wheelchair. And I was like, it's pretty objectively worse to be in a wheelchair. Like, I think that even like someone in a wheelchair would be like, yeah, given the choice, I wouldn't have this. Like you go,
I don't know.
yeah.
The parking is better.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait in line at amusement parks.
But you go, he's not less of a person, but I think that if you're saying it's not better to not be that, like it's clearly not better to be that. But that like that one always like sticks with me, is like so funny. Like it's almost like positive to be like lose your leg. You're like, yes.
Love you guys. Thank you for the chats. Thank you for the comments. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Bye. All right. Love you guys. God, I don't even want to leave. This candle smells so good. I don't want to leave. All right. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye. Love you all. Join the Discord. Feet. Love you all. Wow. You guys are awesome. Come and get it. Bye, guys. Bye. Now I'm really leaving. Love you. Bye.